On a stormy night in rural Montana, thunder crashed as rain poured down on the Kim family farmhouse. Tae Kim stood by the window, watching lightning flash across the dark sky. His wife Gia was making tea in the kitchen, while their teenage daughter, Sue, played a video game on the couch. "That storm's getting worse," Tae said, pressing his hand against the cool glass of the window. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Gia brought him a steaming mug. "Power might go out tonight." Just as she spoke, a brilliant streak of light tore across the sky. But it wasn't lightning. It was too bright, too constant, and moving too fast. "Dad. Look." Sue called out, having abandoned her game to join her father at the window. The light curved downward, leaving a fiery trail before crashing with a distant boom somewhere in their wheat field. The impact shook the farmhouse slightly, rattling the dishes in the cabinets. "What was that?" Gia whispered, gripping Tae's arm. "I don't know," Tae replied, already reaching for his raincoat and boots. "But I'm going to find out. It might have started a fire." "I'm coming too," Gia said firmly, pulling on her own coat. Sue jumped up. "Me too." "No," both parents said together. Tae placed his hands on his daughter's shoulders. "Stay here. Call 911 if we're not back in 15 minutes, okay?" Outside, the rain beat down mercilessly as Tae and Gia trudged through the muddy field, flashlights cutting weak paths through the darkness. The smell hit them first, a strange mix of burning metal and something sweet, almost like cinnamon. "Over there." Gia pointed to where smoke rose despite the pouring rain. As they approached, they saw it wasn't a meteor as they'd first thought. The object had dug a deep furrow in their wheat field, but its shape was too regular, too purposeful. "That..." Tae couldn't finish the sentence. "A spacecraft," Gia whispered, completing his thought. The craft was small, perhaps the size of their pickup truck, with a sleek design that gleamed with an iridescent blue-green color where it wasn't, charred from entry. A section of the hull had cracked open and something was moving inside. Tae approached cautiously, Gia close behind him. The rain hissed as it hit the hot metal of the craft. "Hello?" Tae called out, feeling foolish even as he said it. A sound came from inside, a weak, chittering noise that somehow conveyed pain. Tae peered inside the opening and gasped. There, illuminated by the dim emergency lights of the craft, was a being unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin shimmered with the same blue-green iridescence as the ship, and it had 4 arms, 2 of which were clutching a small bundle protectively. The being was badly injured, blue liquid seeping from wounds across its torso. But what truly caught Tae's attention was the bundle in its arms. When the being saw Tae, it chittered more urgently and held out the bundle. I think it wants us to take that," Gia said, her voice trembling. The being's large eyes, black with specks of light like stars, locked onto Tae's. Somehow, despite the complete alienness of the creature, Tae understood the universal plea of a parent trying to save their child. Tae reached out slowly. The being placed the bundle in his hands, then took his wrist with surprising strength. With one clawed finger, it traced a symbol on Tae's palm. The mark burned briefly, then glowed, with a soft blue light before fading into his skin like a tattoo. "What did it do?" Gia asked, alarmed. Tae shook his head, but before he could respond, the being chittered one final time and went still, its star-filled eyes dimming. The bundle in Tae's arms moved. He carefully pulled back the strange metallic fabric to reveal a smaller version of the alien being, clearly a child or infant of its species. Unlike its parent, the baby alien had patches of crystalline growths on its shoulders and a softer blue coloration. The baby alien blinked up at Tae with the same star-filled eyes, then made a soft cooing sound. "We can't leave it here," Tae said, softly. In the distance, they could hear sirens. Someone else must have seen the crash and called authorities. "If we give it to them, who knows what they'll do to it," Gia said, looking worriedly at the approaching lights on the road. "It's just a baby." Tae looked down at the infant alien. It had wrapped one of its tiny hands around his finger and was making that gentle cooing sound again. The mark on his palm tingled warmly. "Let's go," he decided. "We'll take the back way, through the woods. Sue's waiting." As they hurried across the field, cradling their precious cargo, they didn't notice how the mark on Tay's palm pulsed in time with the baby alien's crystalline patches. They didn't see how the parent's body and spacecraft began to dissolve into the earth, leaving little evidence behind. All they knew was that on this stormy night, their lives had changed forever. 3 months after the crash, Tay sat at the kitchen table watching Dury stack wooden blocks with surprising precision. The small alien child had grown significantly, now resembling a human toddler in size, though still distinctly alien with its blue-tinted skin and the crystalline growths that had spread across its shoulders and down its back. "I've never seen anything grow so fast," Gia remarked, placing a plate of cut fruits in front of Dury. The alien child chittered happily and picked up a piece of apple with its slender fingers. They had named it Dury, a simple Korean name meaning two. Fitting. For the second child in their household, Sue had suggested it, saying it sounded friendly and easy to remember if anyone asked about their unusual houseguest. "According to my notes, Dury's doubled in size since we found him," Tay said, checking the journal where he'd been tracking the alien's development. "And look at this, building structures already." As if to demonstrate, Dury carefully balanced another block on top of the tower, then clapped all 4 of its hands in delight when it stayed put. Sue walked into the kitchen, her school backpack slung over one shoulder. "Dury learned another word this morning," she announced proudly. "Really? What was it?" Gia asked, turning from the stove where she was preparing dinner. "Family," Sue said with a grin. "Dury can say family now." As if on cue, Dury looked up and said in a musical, slightly chirping voice, "Family." The alien child pointed to each of them in turn. Tay, Gia, Sue, Dury, family. Tay felt his throat tighten with emotion. They'd been keeping Dury hidden from the world, turning away neighbors with excuses about renovations and telling Sue to never mention their alien houseguest to anyone. But despite the secrecy and fear of discovery, Dury had become part of their family. "That's right, little one," Gia said, bending down to stroke the crystalline growths on Dury's head, which they discovered felt warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with light when Dury was happy. Later that afternoon, Tay and Sue were working on the tractor in the barn while Dury watched curiously from a hay bale. The old machine had been giving them trouble all week, and with planting season approaching, they needed it fixed quickly. "Hand me that wrench, would you?" Tay asked, his voice muffled from underneath the tractor. Sue reached for the tool on the workbench but knocked over a can of oil in the process. As she bent to pick it up, her foot caught on a power cable running to the work light. She stumbled, falling against the jacks holding up the massive tractor. "Dad!" she cried out as one of the jacks began to tilt. Tay saw the danger immediately. Tons of metal about to come crashing down on both of them. He tried to roll out of the way, but there wasn't time. He raised his arms instinctively, as if they could somehow stop the crushing weight, but the impact never came. A high-pitched hum filled the barn, and Tay looked up to see the tractor suspended just inches above him, surrounded by a shimmering blue field. His eyes darted to Dury, who stood with all 4 arms outstretched, the crystalline growths on its body glowing brilliantly. "Tay, safe," Dury chittered, its star-filled eyes intense with concentration. "Sue, safe." Slowly, the alien child moved its upper arms in a pushing motion, and the tractor lifted back onto its secure position on the jacks, the blue field dissipating as Dury lowered its arms. "Did you see that?" Sue whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. Tay nodded slowly, looking down at his palm where the mark from Dury's parent had been etched months ago. It was glowing with the same blue light as Dury's crystals, pulsing in rhythm with them. That evening, after Sue had gone to bed, Tay and Gia sat in the living room discussing what had happened. "It's like some kind of force field," Tay said, still unable to believe what he'd seen. "Dury saved our lives today." Gia nodded, her expression troubled. "But what does this mean? What else can Dury do that we don't know about?" As if summoned by their conversation, Dury appeared in the doorway, clutching the small piece of metal they'd salvaged from the crash site, the only memento of Dury's parent. The alien child approached and placed one small hand on the mysterious mark on Tay's palm. Instantly, a series of images flashed through Tay's mind. Stars, planets, and creatures like Dury but fully grown, with magnificent crystal structures covering their bodies. They stood protectively near other alien species, generating those same blue fields he'd seen in the barn. Guardians, Dury said simply, the first time they'd heard this word from the child. I think, Tay said slowly. Dury's species protects others, that's what they do. Over the next few weeks, Dury continued to develop at an astonishing rate, now speaking in simple sentences and showing more control over the mysterious protective abilities. The family worked to help Dury understand human ways while keeping their unusual family member hidden from prying eyes, but hiding was becoming more difficult. One evening, the lights in the farmhouse began to flicker wildly. Electronic devices turned on and off by themselves. Outside, the northern lights appeared in the sky despite it being the wrong season and the wrong latitude. It's Dury, Sue realized, pointing to where the alien child sat in the middle of the living room, crystals pulsing with energy. I think Dury's having a nightmare. Tay approached carefully and placed his marked hand on Dury's shoulder. The connection between them flared, and Tay saw flashes of huge ships and menacing figures searching star systems. They're coming, Dury whispered, eyes snapping open in fear. The hunters, they felt me use power. They're coming for us. Gia and Tay exchanged worried glances. Their peaceful life with their alien ward was about to become much more complicated. It's okay, Tay said, gathering Dury close. Family protects each other. We'll keep you safe. Little did he know how soon they would be tested, or that the mark on his palm was broadcasting their location across the stars like a beacon. The day the hunters arrived started like any other. Tay was checking the irrigation systems in the field. Gia was preparing lunch, and Sue was helping Dury learn to write human letters. In the 3 years since they'd found the alien child, their lives had fallen into a comfortable routine despite the secrecy they maintained. Dury had grown to the size of a human 10-year-old, though the alien's actual development was much more advanced. The crystalline formations now covered most of Dury's back and had begun forming intricate patterns down the alien's arms. When Dury was calm, they glowed with a gentle blue light, but the family had learned that strong emotions could make them pulse brightly. Look, I wrote my name, Dury announced proudly, holding up a piece of paper where the letters were carefully formed, if a bit shaky. Sue clapped her hands. That's perfect. Now try writing. She never finished her sentence. The lights in the house flickered violently, and every electronic device began to emit a high-pitched whine. Dury dropped the pencil, crystals flashing from blue to an alarmed purple. They're here, Dury whispered, star-filled eyes wide with fear. Gia rushed to the window just as Tay burst through the front door, breathing hard from running from the fields. Did you see it? He gasped, the mark on his palm glowing brightly. Something huge just entered the atmosphere. It's heading straight for us. Outside, the sky darkened as if a storm was rolling in, but there wasn't a cloud to be seen. Instead, a massive shadow passed overhead, blocking out the sun. The family rushed onto the porch and looked up in awe and terror. The ship was nothing like Dury's parents' small craft. This was a behemoth of black metal and pulsing red lights, at least the size of a football field. It hovered silently above their farm, casting everything in an eerie shadow. Inside now, Tay ordered, ushering his family back into the house. Dury, what are they? Who's in that ship? Dury's crystals were now flashing rapidly between purple and red. Fracken hunters, they track my kind across stars, take us, use us. Use you for what? Sue asked, her voice trembling. War. Dury replied simply. My people protect. Fracken make us weapons. A beam of red light suddenly shot down from the ship, scanning across their property. When it passed over the house, it turned green and began to pulse more rapidly. They found me, Dury said. My energy signature, too strong now. The ground shook as smaller crafts began to descend from the main ship. They reminded Tay of attack helicopters but were silent and moved with impossible speed and precision. "We need to run," Gia said, already grabbing the emergency bags they kept packed, a precaution they'd taken since Dury's nightmare 3 years ago. But before they could reach the back door, a deafening boom shook the house. The front door blasted inward, hinges tearing from the wall. Through the dust and debris stepped a figure that haunted Tay's nightmares, ever since Dury had shared visions of the hunters. The Frakan warrior stood 7 feet tall, with gray-scaled skin and a face that seemed more reptilian than humanoid. It wore armor of gleaming black metal with pulsing red lines that matched the ship overhead. In its 3-fingered hand, it held a weapon that hummed with ominous energy. Behind it, 2 more warriors appeared, their yellow eyes scanning the room, before locking onto Dury. "Guardian offspring," the lead Vrakan said, its voice a harsh, grating sound. "Surrender and your hosts will not be harmed." Dury stepped forward, positioning itself between the hunters and the Kim family. "No, these are my bonded, my family." The Vrakan tilted its head, seeming almost amused. "Primitive sentients are not worthy of guardian bonds. Come with us now." "You heard Dury?" Tay said, standing beside the alien child, his marked palm glowing fiercely. "The answer is no." The lead Vrakan raised its weapon. "Then they will die first." Everything happened in a blur. The weapon discharged, sending a bolt of red energy straight at Tay. Dury screamed, a sound like crystal bells breaking, and threw all 4 arms outward. The blue protective field that had once saved Tay and Sue from the falling tractor now expanded to fill the entire house, stopping the energy bolt mere inches from Tay's chest. It hovered there, crackling against the field. "Run!" Dury shouted, the crystals on its body now blazing with blue fire. "I can't hold this forever." The family scrambled toward the back door as Dury maintained the protective dome. Outside, more Vrakan warriors were landing, surrounding the farmhouse. "We're trapped," Sue cried, looking out the kitchen window at the aliens converging on their home. Dury turned to Tay, the alien's eyes more serious than he'd ever seen them. "Trust me. When I say now, all of you hold on to me." The protective field was beginning to flicker as more energy weapons fired against it. Dury was trembling with the effort of maintaining the shield. "Now!" Dury shouted. The family grabbed Dury, Tay and Gia each taking one of the alien's upper arms while Sue wrapped her arms around Dury's waist. The moment they made contact, Dury's crystals flared with blinding light. The protective field collapsed inward, condensing around the 4 of them just as the energy weapons breached the perimeter. Then with a sound like thunder, the field expanded outward in an explosive wave, knocking the Vrakan warriors off their feet and creating a momentary path. "Go! Go! Go!" Tay shouted, still holding on to Dury as they ran through the gap in the Vrakan forces. They sprinted across the field toward the forest that bordered their property. Behind them, the aliens were regrouping, and overhead, the massive ship was repositioning. "The truck!" Gia gasped as they reached the tree line. Their old pickup was parked by the forest access road where Tay had been checking the irrigation systems. They piled in. Dury squeezed between Sue and Gia in the passenger seat as Tay gunned the engine. The truck roared to life and shot down the dirt road just as energy bolts began to rain down around them, setting trees ablaze. "They'll track us," Dury said weakly, the alien's crystals now dimmed to a faint glow. "The mark on your hand connects us. They can sense it." Tay glanced, down at his palm, the alien symbol still glowing. "Then we'll keep moving, we'll figure this out together." As they sped away from the only home they'd known, leaving behind burning fields and the massive alien ship, Gia reached out to hold Dury's hand. "Why are they so determined to capture you?" she asked. Dury's star-filled eyes met hers. "Because I'm bonded to you now, and they've never seen a guardian bond with humans before. It scares them." "Why would that scare them?" Sue asked. "Because," Dury said softly, "it means humans have something special, something worth protecting." The old mountain cabin creaked in the wind as Ty stared out the window, scanning the night sky for any sign of the Vrakan ships. 2 weeks had passed since they'd fled their farm. 2 weeks of constant movement, sleeping in the truck or abandoned buildings, always looking over their shoulders. "Anything?" Gia asked, coming to stand beside him. Her face showed the strain of their situation, tired eyes, worried lines around her mouth. Tay shook his head. "Nothing yet. But they're still looking." Across the room, Sue sat with Dury by the fireplace, the only source of heat in the remote cabin they'd discovered deep in the Montana mountains. Dury had grown even more in the past 2 weeks, now almost matching Sue in height. The crystals covering the alien's body had spread further, forming intricate patterns that reminded Tay of circuit boards or ancient runes. "The mark is burning, again," Tay said quietly, rubbing his palm where the alien symbol glowed with steady blue light. Gia took his hand and examined the mark. "It's changed. The pattern looks different." Dury looked up, apparently hearing them despite the distance. "It's evolving," the alien said, voice deeper than it had been before. "The bond is strengthening." Tay and Gia moved to join them by the fire. "What exactly is this bond?" Tay asked. "Your parent gave it to me the night we found you, but I still don't understand what it means." Dury was silent for a moment, star-filled, eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "My people are called guardians," the alien finally said. "We travel across the stars, seeking those worthy of protection. When we find them, we bond with them." "Like bodyguards?" Sue asked. Dury made a chittering sound that they'd learned was laughter. "More than that, symbiotes, partners. When my parent died, they saw something in you, Tay, something worthy. They transferred my bond to you and your family." "But why us?" Gia wondered. "We're just farmers." "You saved me," Dury said simply, without hesitation, without knowing what I was. "That's rare in the universe." Tay looked down at his glowing palm. "So what does the bond actually do?" "It connects us," Dury explained. "It allows me to sense your emotions, your pain. It helps me protect you better. And as it grows stronger," the alien paused, seeming unsure whether to continue. "What?" Sue prompted. "It will allow you to access some of my abilities," Dury finished. "That's why the Vraken are hunting us so desperately. A guardian bonded to a species they've never encountered before. It's dangerous to them." The fire crackled as they absorbed this information. Outside, snow began to fall, covering their tracks and providing temporary camouflage from their pursuers. "Can you teach us?" Tay asked finally. "How to use this bond?" Dury nodded slowly. "I can try." Over the next few days, while the snowstorm kept them sheltered in the cabin, Dury worked with each family member to explore the bond. They sat in a circle, hands connected, with Tay's marked palm at the center of their link. "Close your eyes," Dury instructed. "Feel the energy flowing between us. It's like a river connecting our minds." At first, nothing happened. But on the third day, Sue gasped suddenly, her eyes flying open. "I felt something," she exclaimed. "Like a warm current running through my body." Dury nodded encouragingly. "Focus on that feeling. Direct it outward." Sue closed her eyes again, her face scrunched in concentration. Slowly, a faint blue glow began to emanate from her fingertips. It was weak, nothing like the powerful shields Dury could create, but it was there. "I'm doing it," she laughed in delight. Day by day, their abilities grew. Tay could generate small protective fields that lasted a few seconds. Gia discovered she could sense emotional states, feeling the presence of animals in the forest around them. Sue showed the most aptitude, creating sustained shields and even moving small objects with the energy. "You're quick learners," Dury said one evening, watching as Sue practiced floating a pine cone above her palm. "Most species take years to access guardian abilities through the bond." "Maybe humans are just special," Gia suggested. Dury's crystals pulsed warmly. "Maybe you are." Their peaceful training ended abruptly one morning when Tay woke to the sound of distant engines. Not cars or trucks, but the distinctive hum of Vraken vessels. "They've found us," he said, shaking the others awake. "We need to move." They grabbed their few belongings and raced to the truck. But as they reached the clearing where they'd parked, Tay's heart sank. 3 Vrakan warriors stood waiting, weapons raised. "Surrender the Guardian," the lead warrior commanded. "Final warning." Tay stepped forward, his marked palm glowing brightly. "Duri is family. We won't give up family." The Vrakan's yellow eyes narrowed. "Then you will die with it." Before the alien could fire, Duri leapt forward with incredible speed, crystals blazing. A protective dome formed around the family, larger and stronger than any they'd seen before. "Run for the truck," Duri shouted, straining to maintain the shield as energy. Bolts hammered against it. They made it to the vehicle and sped away down the mountain road, Vrakan ships in close pursuit. Energy bolts rained down around them, exploding trees and turning snow to steam. "There's an old mining facility ahead," Tay said, fighting to control the truck on the icy road. "Maybe we can lose them underground." They skidded into the abandoned mining complex, the truck sliding to a halt before a massive metal door. They pried it open and slipped inside just as Vrakan ships appeared overhead. The facility was a maze of tunnels and equipment rooms, long abandoned but still structurally sound. They moved deeper into the complex, using the faint light from Duri's crystals to guide them. "I think we lost them," Sue whispered hopefully, as they huddled in what appeared to be an old control room. But Duri shook its head, crystals dimming, to a worried purple. "No, they're coming. Many of them." Tay looked around at his family. Gia's determined face, Sue's frightened but brave expression, and Duri, who had grown from a rescued infant to their protector. "We can't keep running," he said finally. "Sooner or later they'll corner us somewhere with no escape." "What choice do we have?" Gia asked. Duri stood suddenly, crystals shifting to a resolute blue. "I have to face them, alone." "No." All 3 humans exclaimed at once. "You can't," Sue said, grabbing Duri's hand. "There are too many. They'll capture you or kill you." "And if I don't, they'll kill all of you," Duri replied gently. "My purpose is to protect you. My parent chose you as worthy." Tay felt the mark on his palm burning hotter than ever before. "We're family," he said firmly, "and family faces danger together, not alone." As he spoke, the mark seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, sending waves of blue energy up his arm. Similar energy began to coalesce around Gia and Sue. "The bond," Duri whispered in awe. "It's fully activating." Outside, they could hear the Vrakan forces surrounding the facility. It was only a matter of time before they broke through. "What does that mean?" Gia asked, staring at her glowing hands. Duri's star-filled eyes were wide with wonder. "It means we face them together." The walls of the abandoned mining facility shook as Vrakan weapons hammered against the outer defenses. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the old lights that still had power flickered ominously. "They're breaking through the east entrance," Tay said, the mark on his palm pulsing rapidly as if warning of the approaching danger. Duri stood in the center of the control room, crystals glowing with intense blue light. The alien had changed dramatically in the past hours as the bond fully activated. Crystalline formations now covered most of Duri's body, forming what looked like natural armor. Standing at full height, Duri was now taller than Tay, with 4 fully extended arms and eyes that blazed like galaxies. "We need a plan," Gia said, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the fear they all felt. Duri turned to face the family. "I can sense at least 30 Vrakan warriors, and their commander has arrived." Sue, who had been peering through a crack in the wall, suddenly gasped. "Look outside." They all crowded around the narrow opening. In the clearing before the facility, a larger ship had landed, different from the attack vessels they'd seen before. As they watched, a ramp extended, and a massive figure descended. The Vrakan commander stood at least 9 feet tall, its scaled skin darker than the warriors, almost black. Its armor glinted with red energy lines, and atop its reptilian head sat what appeared to be a crown of metal spikes. "That's Krasnul," Duri whispered, crystals flashing with alarm. "Supreme Hunter. He's killed more Guardians than any other Vrakan in history. A booming voice echoed through the facility, transmitted somehow through the walls themselves. Guardian child, I know you hear me. Your kind is nearly extinct. Surrender now, and I will allow your human pets to live as servants. Tay felt a surge of anger. Pets? We're nobody's pets. He's trying to divide us, Dury said. Break our bond. Another crash shook the building. The Vrakan forces were getting closer. Can we fight them? Sue asked, her hands glowing with the blue energy she'd been practicing. Use our bond powers? Dury's expression was grim. You've only just begun to access the abilities. Against trained warriors and Krasnul himself, the alien didn't finish the sentence. Tay looked at his family, his wife, his daughter, and the alien child they had rescued, who had become their protector. He thought about their farm, now probably destroyed. Their peaceful life, shattered. All because they had done what any decent people would do, save an orphaned child. We didn't ask for this fight, he said finally, but it found us anyway. I say we show these Vrakan what humans are made of. The mark on his palm flared brilliantly as he spoke, and he felt something new, a surge of power unlike the small shields he'd been able to create before. Gia stepped next to him, her hands also glowing. Together. Sue joined them, forming a circle with Dury at the center. Family protects family. Dury's star-filled eyes widened with emotion. I've never seen a species take to the bond like this. It's as if you were meant for it. A final explosion rocked the facility as the Vrakan breached the main door. They could hear the heavy footsteps of warriors entering the complex. It's time, Dury said, placing one hand on each of their shoulders. Whatever happens, remember that my parent chose correctly when they saw your hearts. They moved through the facility's corridors as a unit, the humans instinctively forming a triangle around Dury. When the first Vrakan warriors appeared around a corner, Ty didn't hesitate. He thrust his marked palm forward, and a wave of blue energy shot out, knocking the aliens back. It worked, he exclaimed in surprise. Keep moving, Dury urged. We need to reach the surface. Underground limits my full abilities. They fought their way upward, Gia discovering she could create blinding flashes of light that disoriented the Vrakan, while Sue demonstrated remarkable skill at generating shields that deflected energy weapons. Dury moved with fluid grace, crystals blazing as the alien disabled warriors with precise energy pulses. Finally, they burst through a door onto the surface, emerging onto a loading platform. But their momentary triumph faded as they saw what awaited them. Krasnul stood in the center of the clearing, surrounded by at least 20 warriors. The Vrakan commander's yellow eyes fixed on them with cold calculation. Impressive, the commander's voice rumbled. You've taught humans to access guardian energies, a waste of potential on such primitive beings. Dury stepped forward, all four arms spread wide. These humans are my bonded family. By the ancient laws of my kind, they are under, my protection. Krasnul's scaled face shifted in what might have been amusement. Your laws mean nothing to the Vrakan. Your species is dying. Soon you will be the last serving in my personal guard. Never, Dury replied, crystals pulsing defiantly. The commander raised a massive weapon, pointing it directly at Ty. Then, watch your bonded die first. Time seemed to slow. Tay saw the weapon charging, red energy building at its tip. He saw Dury lunging forward, trying to intercept the blast. He saw Gia and Sue reaching out, their powers still too undeveloped to create a shield strong enough. But then something unexpected happened. From the tree line at the edge of the clearing, a blue energy shield erupted, deflecting the commander's blast harmlessly into the sky. Everyone turned in shock to see a group of humans emerging from the forest, locals from nearby towns, some armed with hunting rifles, others simply carrying tools. We saw the ships, called out an older man at the front of the group. Watched you folks running for days. Figured anyone those creatures want so badly must be worth helping. More people appeared from other directions, dozens of them forming a loose circle around the clearing. Some looked terrified but determined. Others seemed almost excited by the strange blue glow emanating from their hands. Impossible, Krasnul snarled. The guardian bond cannot spread beyond direct contact. Duri's crystals pulsed with wonder. Unless the species has a natural affinity for it. A shared empathy strong enough to bridge gaps. One of the local women spoke up. We don't understand what's happening, but we feel it. Something connecting us, and we know those lizard fellows mean harm. Krasnul roared in fury and signaled his warriors to attack. But as they advanced, blue shields sprang up all around the clearing, imperfect, flickering, but growing stronger as more humans joined the effort. Tay felt the mark on his palm burning hotter than ever before, the power flowing not just to his family now but somehow linking to every human present. At the center of it all stood Duri, crystals blazing like a beacon as the alien channeled energy through the expanding bond network. This is why they feared a human guardian bond, Duri said, voice filled with awe. Your species can share the connection. Amplify it. Krasnul fired his weapon again and again, each blast absorbed by the collective shields. The Vrakan warriors fell back in confusion, as ordinary humans demonstrated abilities they should never have possessed. Enough, the commander bellowed, activating something on his armor. The red energy lines brightened, and he began to grow, even larger, his form shifting as the armor merged with his body. I will end this myself. He charged toward Duri and the Kim family, now transformed into a monstrous version of his former self. But before he could reach them, Tay stepped directly into his path, palm raised. You came to our world, Tay said, voice steady despite facing the terrifying creature. Threatened our family, hunted a child, that ends now. The mark on his palm exploded with light, connecting to Duri and then branching out to every human in the clearing. For a moment they were all linked, their minds touching in a symphony of shared purpose. A massive blue wave erupted from the combined effort, slamming into Krasnul with such force that he was thrown back against his own ship. His warriors scattered, retreating to their vessels as the human guardian energy continued to build. Impossible, the commander rasped as he struggled to rise. What are you? Duri answered, stepping forward with the Kim family. They are the newest guardian-bonded species in the galaxy, and you have made a terrible first impression. Defeated and facing an energy unlike anything the Vrakan had encountered before, Krasnul signaled a retreat. The alien ships lifted off, disappearing into the clouds as the humans cheered. As the blue glow faded, the locals looked at their hands in wonder, then at Duri with a mixture of fear and fascination. Thank you, Tay said to them. You saved us. The older man who had spoken earlier shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. What happens now? Duri's crystals pulsed thoughtfully. Now, I contact my homeworld. Tell them I've found something rare in the universe. A species worthy of becoming guardian partners. 6 months later, Tay stood on the rebuilt porch of their farmhouse, watching the sunset. In the field where Duri's parent had crashed years ago, a memorial garden now grew, tended by Gia and filled with both earth plants and strange crystalline flowers sent by Duri's people. In the sky above, a small guardian ship hovered peacefully, one of several now in orbit around Earth as diplomatic relations developed between humans and the ancient protector race. Duri, now fully mature and magnificent in crystalline armor, emerged from the house to stand beside him. Any word from the council? Tay asked. Duri nodded. They've officially classified Earth as a protected world. The Vrakan have withdrawn from this sector entirely. Sue ran up the path from the road, waving excitedly. The new training center in town is finished. They want Duri to come evaluate the first class of human guardian partners tomorrow. Tay smiled, looking at the mark on his palm, now a permanent reminder of the night they'd rescued an alien child and unwittingly changed humanity's destiny. Not bad for a family of farmers, he said. Duri's crystals pulsed with warm blue light. You were never just farmers. You were the first humans to show what your species truly is. And what's that? Gia asked, joining them on the porch. Duri looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. A race that doesn't just need guardians, but has the heart to become them.